I'm going to discuss in this video Republican reactions to the E. Jean Carroll jury verdicts against Trump using a recent statement made by Senator Scott as a typical example. The Republican Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina has completed his mind meld with Donald, endorsing Trump rather than Nikki Haley, who was South Carolina's governor. Scott claimed that voters were not concerned with the E. Jean Carroll jury verdict, that Trump had sexually assaulted her. Her testimony during the first trial was supported by the testimony of two other women who claimed that Donald had sexually assaulted them. Over 20 women have made similar claims. Donald, in effect, admitted to sexual assaults in the Access Hollywood tape. I would agree with Scott that voters supporting Trump's reelection, including the self-professed Christian evangelicals, do not care about the jury verdicts, the Access Hollywood tape, or the accusations made by other women that Donald had sexually assaulted them. It would not matter to them if 100 women had claimed that Trump had sexually assaulted them. Increasing the number would not change their opinion of Trump's character. The way that the evangelicals reconcile their Christian beliefs with Donald's conduct, which would at least appear to be impossible to a rational person, is actually easy for them to do. Donald's crude statements in the Access Hollywood tape are not admissions of prior sexual assaults in Trump's America, but mere locker room talk, and do not even provide a window into his soul. If a Democrat candidate for president had uttered the same comments, Republicans have reached the opposite conclusion, without a question. Can there be any doubt about that? I think not. The jury verdict is dismissed as coming from a New York jury presided over by a Trump-hating judge, rather than a jury verdict justified by the evidence. All of the other 20 or so women who have claimed that Donald has sexually assaulted them are dismissed as publicity seekers or worse, who are telling tall tales about Donald, who in Trump world is a truth-telling Christian anointed by God to rule in America. In my blog, I have referenced two polls taken when Donald was president that 81% of Republicans believed he was honest, and almost as many viewed him as a role model for their children. What can you say to that? Most informed voters are aware that the Washington Post documented over 30,000 false and misleading statements made by Trump during his 4-year term as president. Those are just the publicly made false and misleading statements. The documentation is dismissed as coming from the fake news liberal media. Only Trump is telling them like it is, along with Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, and a few others in the far-right media who parrot Donald's claims for him. Facts do not matter in what can only be described as a self-contained Orwellian bubble. Scott and other Republican politicians who have endorsed Donald believe that voters are more interested in returning to normalcy. And Donald is the normalcy in Trump world, rather than being a malignant narcissist who checks all of the boxes for that diagnosis. Scott may mean that the economy was better under Trump, a claim that is not supported by the job and GDP growth during Biden's 3 years in office, and the return of personal consumption inflation to 2% in the fourth quarter, with the core PCE inflation at 1.7%. Inflation was temporarily driven higher by economic forces beyond the control of the president, including supply chain disruptions, a surge in consumer demand post-pandemic, the Fed's extremely excessive money creation in 2020 and 2022, and its failure to abandon ZERP and quantitative easing before inflation had risen to over 8% annual gain in March of 2022.